Good evening, you're watching World News Tonight on TVP World. I'm Aaron Darman. Poland's Prime Minister says it's not in Warsaw's interest to hand over the man wanted by Germany over alleged sabotage of the Nord Stream gas pipelines. Donald Tusk also confirming that the decision ultimately lies with the courts. As we go to air tonight, these are our top stories. Minsk tightens its grip on imprisoned Polish-Belarusian journalist Andrzej Poczobut. Lithuania prepares citizens for the worst-case scenario, evacuation. And from exports to expansion, Polish firms go global. It is not in the interest of decency and justice to hand over this citizen. That's the message from Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk as he pushes back on Berlin's request to extradite the Ukrainian suspect accused of damaging the Nord Stream pipelines. Poland has long opposed the project, which allowed Russian gas to flow directly to Germany until explosions more than 3 years ago left the route useless. Paweł Trzaskowski reports.
This is what the Nord Stream pipeline looked like 3 years ago after it was blown up in an underwater explosion. Half a year after the Russian invasion on Ukraine, it was to be sabotaged by a group of Ukrainian divers, according to the German prosecution. One of the suspects in this case, Volodymyr Z, was detained in Poland last week. Now it's up to the national court to decide whether he will be extradited to Germany for a trial. But the Polish Prime Minister says an extradition would not serve his country well.
It is certainly not in the interest of Poland or in the interest of a simple sense of decency and justice to accuse or hand over this citizen to another state.
The Nord Stream pipeline, along with its newer sibling Nord Stream 2, bypassed Poland and the Baltic states, transporting Russian gas directly to Germany, a symbol of Western Europe's dependence on Russian resources staunchly opposed by Warsaw.
The problem of Europe, the problem of Ukraine, the problem of Lithuania and Poland is not that Nord Stream 2 was blown up, but that it was built.
The explosion rendered the pipelines useless, cutting off Russia from the European markets, something that the countries supporting Ukraine should fight, not condemn, according to Volodymyr Z's lawyer.
Vladimir Putin is rubbing his hands together looking at the fact that thanks to German and ultimately Polish hands, a Ukrainian citizen accused of an act that is probably considered an act of heroism in Ukraine is in a Polish detention center.
Subsequent investigations into the cause of the incident, led by Sweden and Denmark, were closed without identifying the suspects. The German investigation, however, is still open.
We in Germany are a state of law and we consistently investigate crimes committed within our jurisdiction.
These comments were made by the German Justice Minister after another suspect, Serhiy K., was detained in Italy in August this year. An Italian lower court ordered his extradition to Germany, but Serhiy K. is appealing the verdict to Italy's top court. Back in Poland, Volodymyr Z is to remain in custody for up to 40 days, awaiting extradition ruling. Paweł Trzaskowski for TVP World.
Andrzej Poczobut is halfway into an 8-year sentence for criticising Alexander Lukashenko's regime, and there's little hope of freedom soon. The Belarusian-Polish journalist has been moved to solitary confinement after spending months in a maximum security penal colony. Piotr Miszczuk has more.
This is Andrzej Poczobut, a Polish-Belarusian journalist who is 4 years into an 8-year sentence for criticism of the Belarusian regime. After several months in maximum security penal colony, he has now been moved to solitary confinement for 6 months.
The dictator continues to torment and abuse Andrzej Poczobut, who has been placed in a punishment cell for 6 months.
He has now been placed in Nowa Polacka, a penal colony with a reputation of one of the worst across Belarus. He cannot be visited by his family or receive mail. The transfer is bad news for Poczobut.
He will be kept in a closed space and see the light for, I don't know, a couple of hours a day maximally in a small corner couple of meters long and couple of meters wide.
One could pin more hopes on Poczobut's release after Belarusian dictator Alexander Lukashenko made a series of US-brokered prisoner releases at the turn of June. And after Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski assured the public that Poland would attempt to bring Poczobut back.
We will continue to strive to free the rest, including Andrzej Poczobut.
But some experts speculate he might have already been offered freedom but declined to leave Belarus, similarly to Mykola Statkiewicz, who in late June refused deportation to Lithuania and was returned to the penal colony.
Maybe Andrzej Poczobut does not agree to be exchanged or to be expulsed from Belarus like other political prisoners. Maybe he behaves like Mykola Statkiewicz.
Many Belarusian opposition activists still remain behind bars after arrests during anti-regime protests in 2020 and 2021. Belarusian opposition leader Svetlana Tikhanovskaya hopes US President Trump and European leaders will help free more of them.
Releasing of at least 1,300 political prisoners, it's a huge scores, for any president.
One of the recently released prisoners is her husband Sergei. Now their family residing in Lithuania has had their level of security detail reduced, prompting her to scale back her activity.
Our work has been closely linked with Lithuania's security system, which is why we now have to temporarily suspend part of our operations. Svetlana Tikhanovskaya's security is not a luxury or a privilege, it is a matter of survival.
The change particularly pertains to her personal protection during foreign trips. The move likely serves Lithuania's domestic politics purpose, catering to a nationalist group in the new government.
In my opinion, there is a nationalistic mood in Lithuania, so they consider immigrants from Belarus as a threat to the national identity. Basically, they're Russian-speaking.
And now it will be more difficult for Tikhanovskaya to raise awareness about the ongoing repressions in Belarus. Piotr Miszczuk, TVP World.
A political shake-up in the Czech Republic as Prime Minister Petr Fiala reveals he will not stand for re-election as leader of the Civic Democrats Party. It comes just days after his centre-right coalition lost the country's parliamentary election, likely paving the way for billionaire businessman Andrzej Poczobut to return to power. Alexandra Bulenda reports.
The Czech political stage is shifting. After the ruling coalition's defeat, Prime Minister Petr Fiala announced he will step down as leader of the Civic Democrats, signalling the end of an era for the centre-right Spolu alliance. His party is heading into opposition.
At the beginning of the Executive Council, I informed the members of my decision to not run for the position of chairman again.
Meanwhile, the power puzzle is being rearranged. Czech President Petr Pavel has confirmed that coalition talks are underway. A three-party deal between ANO, SPD and the motorists. But as Pavel underlines, the process must not be rushed.
We also agreed that there should be no rush to complete the process, so that political parties have sufficient time to discuss all possible scenarios, agree on policy platforms and reach a consensus.
But Babiš appears eager to move fast, urging his potential coalition partners on Wednesday on his social media not to comment on the ongoing talks until they reach an agreement.
Because when they do, journalists start trying to negotiate instead. I'm not going to negotiate with journalists. Once we're done, I'll go see the president, and I hope that will happen by Friday.
For Babiš, joining forces with the far-right SPD and the anti-established motorist may actually prove convenient. Analysts say it could help him bypass earlier tensions with the president, especially over controversial ministerial nominees.
I think this would, in a way, give him a little bit more legitimacy, as he would not have to openly nominate some of these members to the ministerial positions, as I think already President Pavel indicated that he may have some difficulty appointing some of these people to ministerial positions.
And while the political balance shifts, the country is experiencing another historical first. 67 women have been elected to the new Chamber of Deputies. the highest number in the Czech history. Preferential voting gave many of them a boost, especially in the Pirate Party and among the mayors and independents. The new parliament will convene on November 3rd. A changing of the guard and a new chapter in Czech politics. For TVP World, I'm Alexandra Bulenda.
Are you ready to evacuate? Civilians across parts of NATO's eastern flank have gathered in Lithuania, learning what to do in the event of a crisis, including war. But as defence correspondent Susanna Jurek reports, Poland's preparedness is playing catch-up.
Vilnius, capital city of the Baltic state of Lithuania, where population is being trained on how to act in the event of a crisis situation, including war.
There is a mobile app called Kovas that provides a list of essential items. I took everything that was recommended: clothes, food, charging equipment.
These exercises will help me prepare for how I would behave in a crisis situation.
I took my dog with me to see what it all looked like. I also brought the most necessary things. The drills were also open to participants from neighboring nations: Latvia, Estonia and Poland.
This is a valuable experience for us. We are gaining knowledge and skills. We observe how Lithuanians cope and how you organize things. We see what you have developed and what we could possibly use in our own country.
In Poland, however, despite the push for bolstering preparedness, social resilience remains in its infancy.
We are at the beginning of some important steps which will improve our preparedness. It's connected with a number of acts that are currently under preparation in our parliament, so then we need some also practice.
As underlined by politicians working closely on the matter, including the former Dutch defense minister, this task is imperative in light of new and emerging threats targeting societies of NATO's eastern flank.
What we're seeing is, there's an outright war in Ukraine, but we're in the grey zone also in the European Union. There is a hybrid war going on, and in this war everything is used. Misinformation is used, sabotage, and all of this is meant to divide us, to make the unity, which is strong, of course, in the European Union, to diminish this unity, to confuse people.
An urgency in responding to these challenges is of the essence, as ensuring that civilians know how to respond forms the very foundation of preparedness for a possible conflict.
This is a very main concept of total defense. So if we talk about preparedness, about crisis response in difficult times, in difficult situations, then social resilience is the very basic. It's of course the question of the trust within the society. It's a holistic approach. It's the question connected also with the role of each individual.
For TVP World, Susanna Jurek.
He was once the president of Kosovo. Now Hashim Thaçi faces a make-or-break legal fight to keep his record clean, standing accused of historical war crimes during the 1990s. As his defence team takes the stand at The Hague, Thaçi is banking on international support, with a ruling expected early next year. Sonia Agata-Beschan explains.
Hashim Thaçi, former president of Kosovo, is in The Hague, trying to prove his innocence before the Kosovo specialist chambers. The price? Possible return to local politics.
It is very likely that if there is an acquittal, Thaçi would be back on the political scene and leading his political party again. And even without him officially being part of it, they still came out second in the last election. So this would most likely be a huge challenge to the acting Prime Minister, Aydin Kurti.
Thaçi is accused of war crimes and crimes against humanity as the political leader of the Kosovo Liberation Army in the late 1990s.
The Kosovo Liberation Army was, for the Albanian population, a liberation army fighting against the aggressor, Yugoslav army and police. But the prosecution claims that during that war, the KLA also, was engaged in mistreating or, political opponents.
Tensions between Kosovo, recognized as an independent state by over half of UN members, and Serbia are resurfacing with this trial. The Yugoslav army and Serbian forces were found responsible for killings as well as the displacement of more than 700,000 Kosovo Albanians from Kosovo. For much of Kosovo's population, the trial against Taci, who has been in detention since 2020, and other KLA general staff is misplaced.
I think they should be released. Kosovo today, the freedom today, is because of our liberators. We all have to go out and protest until they are released.
Justice must not become a political instrument. KLA fought not for power but for freedom. Serbs who committed crimes enjoy freedom, while liberators are in detention.
The trial seeks to determine whether Taci, as KLA's political leader, bore responsibility for alleged crimes committed by the army.
I absolutely saw the relationship between those commanders and Hashim, and they told him what to do. He didn't tell them what to do.
Said James Rubin, former Assistant Secretary of State, reflecting a voice of the U.S. government at the time.
I solemnly declare...
Rubin is one of the several senior Western officials who came before the court in Taci's defense, which, according to experts, could impact the outcome of his case.
The category of the witnesses who are coming to his support, we're talking about high-level Western officials, is strong. So sort of it gives the defense a really, really strong argument. I find it difficult to see how Taci could be found guilty.
Taci fostered close relations with the U.S. throughout the years. Joe Biden called him Kosovo's George Washington, implying his role as the country's founding father. Taci was Kosovo's first prime minister and proclaimed its independence.
He ultimately brought about the NATO mission in 1999, which, of course, eventually triggered the Serbian retreat from Kosovo. His role in liberating Kosovo from the Serbian oppression is not disputed.
The defense is anticipated to wrap up its case by mid-November, with a ruling expected around March 2026. For TVP World, I'm Sonia Agata-Biszczyn.
Thank you.
Poland's economy is the fastest growing in Europe and business is booming. At the same time, some firms say they have already hit the domestic ceiling and want to expand into the global marketplace. Jan Kennedy has more.
This is Warsaw's skyline. It is expanding nearly as quickly as Poland, the fastest growing economy in Europe. Some Polish companies, however, feel that they have already reached the ceiling in the domestic market. In fact, a PwC-conducted survey shows that nearly 30% of medium-sized businesses want to expand abroad, and 14% are seeking to grow their foreign operations further. While the report shows most Polish companies tend to expand to European markets, predominantly France and Germany, recent political turmoil in the US clearly hasn't discouraged companies from picking the world's biggest economy as the dream destination for expansion.
Companies value the United States primarily for its very large market. They appreciate access to cutting-edge technologies and, perhaps surprisingly, they consider labor costs to be at an attractive level.
And that is where the Polish Development Fund steps in. Owned by the state, its objective is to help predominantly middle-sized Polish companies with up to 50 employees expand, without effectively taking over their business.
We actually started the season with a success because we invested with Polish Grupa Trend in Germany, which is the first investment that we expect for this part of the year, and we expect at least 2 more investments of this type. That means foreign acquisitions or foreign expansion in the other ways.
Overall, the fund says it wants to complete between 2 and 4 foreign expansion projects every month. With the next move, this time to the US market, set to be announced next week. For TVP World, Jan Kennedy.
Forget the sound of music. Welcome to the sound of Frédéric Chopin. Warsaw will this week play host to the second round of one of the most prestigious classical music competitions in the world, named after the Polish composer. Karolina Stolzmann has the highlights so far.
The Chopin competition, the world's most prestigious piano contest, began with 84 participants who traveled to Warsaw from 18 countries. Over half of the participants have been eliminated in the first round of the competition. Piotr Pawlak, seen here, is among 4 Poles still in the running. China leads the group with 15 pianists qualifying for the next round, underscoring the country's growing influence in the classical music sphere. We asked an expert to weigh in on the chances Polish pianists have to win the competition.
Piotr Aleksiewicz has participated 4 years ago, and he was in the semi-finals, and now he's back. He has made a very convincing first round. And so that's the first name to mention, a very good musician and an excellent pianist. And another is Yehuda Prokopowicz, who is very, very young and has produced a wonderful performance yesterday. So I would bet on these two from out of 4.
The prestigious competition can only have one winner.
We have a strong field of contenders who will certainly make the next 3 rounds very, very interesting.
The second stage of the Chopin competition will end this Sunday, and only some 20 players will remain to fight for the title of the top Chopin interpreter, a €60,000 prize and a gold medal. For TVP World, Karolina Stolzman.
We return now to our top story, Nord Stream 2, the extradition case of Wladimir Z, and what could happen next. Joining me to break it all down is Roland Freudenstein, co-founder of the Brussels Freedom Hub. Good evening, Roland.
Good evening, Aaron. Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure to have you. Now, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk says it's not in Warsaw's interest to hand over Wladimir Z to any foreign country, and that, quote, the problem is not that Nord Stream 2 was blown up, but that it was built. What's the message he's trying to send here, and to whom?
Well, first of all, it's not his decision whether the extradition takes place. It's the courts in Poland. And maybe he's happy about this, that he doesn't have to decide. But in any case, on political substance, he's absolutely right. And I think he's a bit unnerved by the current debate in Germany, part of which is, of course, some people accusing Ukraine of state terrorism because some Ukrainians, we don't know whether with the backing of the government or not, seem to have blown up the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. But, you know, what it really boils down to is exactly what Donald Tusk said. The problem is not blowing up the pipeline. The problem is that the pipeline was built.
You mentioned that it's not Prime Minister Tusk's decision. In the same breath, he also says that it's up to the courts to finalise any extradition decision. So why is the government, why is Tusk making such strong political statements when ultimately this is a legal case?
Well, because he feels very strongly about it. And I've read on social media how the current Polish opposition is accusing him of not having prevented the building of Nord Stream 2. Well, he couldn't have. This was, unfortunately, a lone decision by the German government at the time. Merkel is to blame, indeed. She bears the ultimate responsibility. And Tusk, I'm absolutely sure, even at that time, told her that she is wrong to push ahead with that project, which makes Europe more dependent on Russian energy and gives Putin additional cards to play in his power play. So I think he was right then. And he actually really believes these words, and he's right to utter them.
And I want to talk about Angela Merkel in just a moment. But in 2020, you co-authored a paper titled The Case Against Nord Stream 2. You write, and I quote, the pipeline could jeopardise the overall energy security of Ukraine and worsen the geopolitical position of the country. Looking back now, was Nord Stream 2 a political project that put Kyiv at risk?
Well, for Russia it was. The problem was that many Germans, including business, including the government, including both Social Democrats and some conservatives, were maintaining for a long time that this is a purely business project without any strategic implications. That was wrong. And yes, I have the bitter satisfaction of having been right about this.
What is the lesson that Europe, especially Germany, is learning right now off the back of what we're seeing with Nord Stream 2?
Well, the lesson is very simply that, Vladimir Putin has not been acting in good faith for a long time. Not only since the full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, and not only since the first invasion of Ukraine in 2014. So, the belief that you can do business with that man, and really all Russian business is somehow influenced by the government, is a big error, and I think we have plenty of evidence to corroborate that.
You mentioned former German Chancellor Angela Merkel earlier. She's drawn backlash in recent days for suggesting Poland and Baltic countries blocked possible EU talks with Putin before the Ukraine war. How have those comments gone down in Berlin? Because in Poland, in Warsaw, there has been immense backlash to what she had to say.
Yeah, I think there was a backlash in Germany as well. The German security community, as it's called, the experts, strategists, experts on military questions, experts on economic security, in their vast majority have been criticizing Merkel's position on Putin for some time. And when she now implied that Poland and the Baltic states prevented her from proposing a new deal with Putin in June 2021, we are also appalled at the self-righteousness of Angela Merkel, who, she's saying this for one of two reasons, or maybe for both. First of all, she's pretending that further talks could have kept Putin from attacking Ukraine. And she's somehow claiming that she had a deal to follow up Minsk II, in which Putin didn't believe anymore, as she stated. So, what would that deal have been? Already Minsk II was unfair to Ukraine and treating Russia as a mediator, not as the aggressor. So if she wanted to present a deal to Putin that he believed in, it would have been even worse for Ukraine than Minsk II. So I don't know which is worse, that she believed talking helps against shooting, which is evidently not true, or she believes that she had a deal which would have thrown Ukraine even deeper under the bus, that Putin would have believed in. I honestly have no idea, and I tell you, the majority of German policy wonks is actually as appalled as I am about what she's saying, and also about what she's implying here.
Now, while I have you, we're also seeing several EU countries tightening or considering tightening citizenship laws, including Germany, but also Poland, Italy, France. In your view, when it comes to migration, are we in a nativist era of European migration? Well, our societies realize that we cannot take in an unlimited number of migrants, especially uncontrolled migrants. And there is a second fact pertaining to exactly the development that you are now mentioning. Some governments have made it very easy to get speedy citizenship. Now, in a very interesting opinion poll recently, we've discovered in Germany that, in fact, the percentage of migrants intending to vote for the right-wing nationalist AfD party is basically the same as in the general population. Why is that? Because they really resent the possibility for recent arrivals to get German citizenship within 3 years, so-called turbo citizenship process, and where they themselves had to spend 10 years or 20 years of hard work of being second-class citizens in a way without German citizenship before they could get it. So they really resent this fact. And I think
Germany's move now to increase the number of years again, to go from minimum 3 years to minimum 5 years, is also motivated by this impression that some long-term migrants in Germany really resent the fact that it's become so easy to get a passport.
Roland Freudenstein, co-founder of the Brussels Freedom Hub, thank you again so much for your time.
Thank you.
And that's all for World News tonight. Do stay with us here on TVP World for more. I'm Aaron Darman. Good night.